When my husband died, my daughter-in-law told me I'd get nothing from his millions. She smiled through the funeral like a queen at her coronation. I didn't know then that her smile would fade the moment the lawyer laughed at the will reading, but this is how it all began. Chapter 1. The funeral she didn't plan. The morning of Andrew Hale's funeral dawned cold and windless, the kind of silence that feels rehearsed. The church was draped in lilies, chosen not by me, but by my daughter-in-law, Vanessa. She organized everything: flowers, hymns, even the seating chart. I watched her glide through the crowd of mourners, offering tight smiles, accepting condolences like they belonged to her. Andrew had been worth $48 million, but to me, his worth was never in numbers. He was my best friend, the man who read poetry to me over morning coffee. Yet, in the front pew, as the organ swelled, I felt like a stranger attending someone else's ceremony. Vanessa had made sure of that. After the service, she approached me with a small velvet box. "Andrew wanted you to have this," she said. Inside was a single gold cufflink, one of a pair I had given him years ago. No letter. No note. Just the cufflink. Her eyes didn't meet mine when I thanked her. That night, the house felt hollow. Every room smelled faintly of disinfectant and wilted flowers. I sat at Andrew's desk, touching the grain of the oak where his hands once rested. Something inside me stirred, an unease deeper than grief. It wasn't just loss I felt. It was erasure. The next morning, I noticed small changes. His framed awards were gone from the hallway. The family photos on the mantel replaced with images of Vanessa and her friends. Even the gate code had been changed. I wasn't paranoid, I was being pushed out of my own life. But it wasn't until 3 days later that the truth began to unfold. A short, formal email arrived from Vanessa's assistant. "Mrs. Hale, you are required to attend the estate administration meeting at 10 a.m. Tuesday. Attendance is mandatory." Mandatory. That word struck me. My husband's will, our will, was being treated like a corporate transaction. I didn't know it yet, but that meeting would change everything. Because what Vanessa didn't know was that Andrew left behind more than money. He left behind the truth. If you think this story ends at the funeral, you're wrong. This is where the revenge begins. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're streaming from. Chapter 2 will leave you speechless. Chapter 2, the email that changed everything. When I walked into that law office, I thought I'd already lost everything. My daughter-in-law sat there, grinning like she'd won. But minutes later, the lawyer stopped reading, and laughed. That laugh changed my life. The Hamilton and Pierce Law Building towered over downtown Napa like a monument to power. I walked in alone, clutching my purse like armor. The receptionist's smile was polite but distant, the kind reserved for someone no longer relevant. Vanessa was already seated at the long mahogany table, draped in black silk and confidence. Beside her sat 2 attorneys, their suits sharper than scalpels. "Mother Hale," she said sweetly, gesturing to the far end. "We've started without you." The lawyer began reading the will. "To my beloved daughter-in-law, Vanessa Hale, I entrust management of the family trust and estate. My name was never mentioned." My throat tightened. The room blurred. I gripped the table edge to steady myself. Vanessa's smile widened, a private victory blooming behind her calm facade. Then the lawyer hesitated. He flipped a page, frowned, and reached for a thin envelope clipped to the back. "Well, this is unexpected," he murmured. He unfolded a handwritten page, squinted, then chuckled under his breath. Vanessa's face stiffened. "What's so funny?" He looked up. A codicil. Handwritten by Andrew Hale, dated a week before his passing. It reinstates Mrs. Catherine Hale as co-trustee and co-beneficiary. And there's more. He cleared his throat, reading aloud. "Should any party alter or conceal the contents of this trust, their claims are void in full." The silence was electric. Vanessa's knuckles whitened around her pen. "That's impossible," she hissed. "He was too ill." The lawyer's smile turned knowing. Apparently, he wasn't too ill to protect his wife. I said nothing. I simply gathered my purse and stood. My legs trembled, but my voice didn't. "Thank you," I told him. "That will be all." Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner. I had no plan yet, but I knew one thing: Andrew had seen through her. And now, so would I. The will reading was only the beginning. Wait till you see what I found in Andrew's study. Like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Chapter 3 uncovers a secret Vanessa never wanted revealed. Chapter 3. The laugh heard around the room. They say justice doesn't laugh, but that day, it did. When the lawyer read Andrew's final note, my daughter-in-law's smile cracked for the first time. I didn't realize then that laugh would echo through every secret she tried to bury. Back inside the conference room, silence lingered after the codicil's reading. Vanessa's lawyers shuffled papers, whispering frantically. The attorney cleared his throat, reminding them, Mrs. Hale's status is now legally protected. Vanessa turned to me, her mask slipping. You had no idea about this, did you? No, I said evenly. But Andrew did. That sentence seemed to sting more than anything. She slammed her pen down, muttering, this isn't over. I left the building with my heart pounding. For the first time since Andrew's death, I felt something fierce rising inside me, hope, wrapped in fury. That night, I sat in Andrew's office again. His scent, cedar and ink, still lingered. On instinct, I began searching the drawers, carefully checking behind files, under ledgers. That's when I found it, a manila folder wedged behind a row of old journals. It was labeled Pending Review. Inside were 3 documents. A handwritten note from Andrew. Vanessa is pushing to change everything. I'm not sure why. A printed draft of his will, my name crossed out in red ink. A schedule of legal meetings arranged by Vanessa during his hospital stay. The truth clicked into place. Vanessa hadn't just manipulated Andrew, she'd isolated him. I stared at that folder until dawn. Then, with trembling hands, I dialed Michael Trent's number, Andrew's oldest friend and financial advisor. Michael, I said, I think she forged something. What Catherine discovers next will turn suspicion into proof. Stay tuned for Chapter 4, and if you're hooked already, subscribe, like, and tell us where you're streaming from. The truth is only beginning to surface. Chapter 4, Whispers from the Past. They say the dead can't speak, but Andrew did. Not in words or whispers, but in papers his daughter-in-law never meant for me to find. And what those papers revealed changed everything. Michael met me at a quiet cafe the next morning. He looked older than I remembered, worry etched across his face. I spread the documents before him, careful not to attract attention. His brow furrowed as he flipped through them. These signatures, he muttered. Catherine, this isn't Andrew's handwriting. The witness names, completely unfamiliar. He looked up. Vanessa's been planning this for months. The shock left me silent. Can we prove it? We can try, he said. Start with verification. County records. And Catherine, keep these safe. They're evidence now. I nodded, clutching the folder. For years I had trusted Vanessa as family. Now she was a stranger who tried to erase me. That night, I combed through Andrew's old calendar and noticed something odd, a penciled-in appointment with Harold Voss, a tax consultant, 2 weeks before he died. The note read, Protect Catherine's share. Review survivor clause. I called Michael immediately. By morning, he'd tracked Harold down. Over speakerphone, the man's voice trembled. Yes, I met Andrew, he said. He seemed anxious, said someone was pushing changes. We were supposed to meet again, but Vanessa cancelled. Said he no longer needed my services. Did he sign anything here? Michael asked. No, Harold replied. He only left a draft, and a note about ensuring Mrs. Hale's security. When the call ended, silence filled the room. The truth was spreading like light through cracks. For the first time, I saw a path forward, not revenge, but justice. The pieces are falling into place, but Vanessa's web runs deeper than anyone guessed. Join me in Chapter 5 as Catherine takes her first bold step toward exposing the fraud. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share where you're streaming from. It's about to get real. Chapter 5, The Friend Who Knew Too Much. Every secret needs an accomplice, and every lie leaves a trail. I was about to learn my daughter-in-law's trail led straight to my husband's closest circle. Michael arrived at my home that afternoon with a leather briefcase and determination in his eyes. He'd already filed requests with the county clerk's office to authenticate Andrew's will. If what you have is real, he said, we'll expose her. We spent hours reviewing the folder. Michael's experience in finance made him meticulous. Look here, he pointed. This seal, identical to another estate I handled 5 years ago. Same notary, same date, but different signature. That's impossible. My stomach turned. You mean she reused documents? She either reused or fabricated them. Both are crimes. He sat back, sighing. Catherine, Vanessa's been siphoning control of the trust for at least 6 months. Bank transfers, digital authorizations, even property reassignment, all during Andrew's chemotherapy. The thought stole my breath. He trusted her. And she took everything. That night, I stared at Andrew's portrait above the fireplace. I whispered, "I'll make it right, Andrew. I promise." The next morning, Michael introduced me to Elena Ruiz, a sharp-minded probate attorney with a reputation for exposing forged estates. She listened quietly, tapping her pen. Then she said, "Mrs. Hale, what your daughter-in-law did isn't just betrayal. It's fraud." Elena promised to help, discreetly. Her first move, file a motion to freeze the estate until authenticity could be verified. "It'll rattle her," Elena said. "Let's see how she reacts when the money stops moving." For the first time since Andrew's death, I smiled, not in joy, but in resolve. The woman who said I'd get nothing was about to lose everything. Vanessa thinks she's untouchable, but Chapter 6 will prove otherwise. Like, subscribe, and tell us where you're streaming from, because the game is about to turn. Chapter 6, The Freeze Order. When you freeze a liar's money, you freeze their smile. Vanessa thought she'd buried every secret with my husband, but that morning, her empire stopped moving, and her panic began. The sun hadn't risen when Elena called. "Catherine, it's done," she said. "The court has issued a temporary freeze on the Hale estate accounts. Vanessa can't move a cent without judicial review." I sat at the kitchen table, the phone trembling in my hand. "You're sure?" "Positive. The judge signed it last night after reviewing preliminary evidence. It's airtight for now." For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Months of silent humiliation, of being treated like a ghost in my own home. Suddenly, the balance had shifted. Later that morning, Vanessa arrived at the house unannounced. Her heels struck the marble like warning shots. "Did you do this?" she demanded, waving a printed email. "My accounts are frozen, Catherine. My lawyer says it came from you." I stayed calm. "It came from the truth," I said quietly. "Andrew didn't raise fools." Her eyes blazed. "You think this is over a few signatures? You'll regret this." "Perhaps," I said, "but not as much as you will." She left in a storm of perfume and fury. When the door closed, silence settled like armor. That afternoon, Elena called again. "Her legal team just filed an objection," she said. "But that's good. It means she's scared. We'll use discovery to force her to submit the original will." Michael joined us later, bringing a USB drive. "I found something else," he said. "A transfer of $500,000 from Andrew's charitable foundation into Vanessa's personal account, dated 1 week before his death." I stared at the numbers, rage rising like heat. She robbed him while he was dying. Michael nodded grimly. "And we'll make sure everyone knows it." That night, I sat by Andrew's old piano, fingers tracing the ivory keys. I whispered, "You were right to prepare, my love." She underestimated me. The sound of the clock ticking filled the house. For the first time in months, it didn't sound lonely. It sounded like a countdown. Vanessa's empire just cracked, but she's not done fighting. What she does next will shock you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're streaming from, because Chapter 7 is where the real war begins. Chapter 7, The Counterstrike. They say the guilty don't sleep, and Vanessa hadn't closed her eyes in days. When she struck back, it wasn't with grief or guilt. It was with revenge of her own. 2 days after the freeze order, a white envelope slid under my door. Inside was a legal notice stamped in red, "Eviction Notice, Occupancy Challenge." I laughed bitterly. Vanessa had filed a motion claiming I had no right to live in the Hale residence. My husband's house. My home for 32 years. I called Elena immediately. "She's trying to evict me." "Let her," Elena said. "It's desperation. Judges don't take kindly to power plays while investigations are ongoing." Still, the thought of losing my home sent a chill through me. Every corner of that house held a memory. Birthdays, anniversaries, lazy Sunday mornings with Andrew reading the paper. Vanessa wanted to erase all of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I walked through the dark halls, pausing by Andrew's study. I turned on the desk lamp, and there it was, his old voice recorder, still sitting by the blotter. I pressed play. Static. Then Andrew's voice, faint but clear, note to self, she's pushing too hard. Vanessa insists on legal control. I'll need to contact Michael again if I can't trust her. My heart stopped. Proof. His voice. I called Michael immediately, waking him. He recorded this before he died, I said. It's time-stamped, 2 days before his final hospital visit. Michael's tone sharpened. Catherine, that's your smoking gun. Make a copy and hide the original. Vanessa can't know you have it. The next morning, I did just that, sealed it inside a deposit box at the bank. When I returned home, Vanessa was waiting outside in her car, engine idling. She lowered her window. You've made a big mistake, she said coldly. I smiled faintly. So did you. She drove off without another word. I stood at the gate watching her go, clutching my coat against the chill. For the first time, I realized something powerful. Vanessa wasn't just angry. She was afraid. The tables are turning fast, but Vanessa's about to cross a line she can't return from. Stay tuned for Chapter 8. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're streaming from. The next twist will leave you speechless. Chapter 9. The Fire and the Frame. They say revenge burns hottest at night. I didn't set the fire, but I was the one she blamed for it. It was 2:43 a.m. when I woke to the sound of sirens. Flames licked the sky outside my window. The guest house, Andrew's old wine cellar and archive, was engulfed. By dawn, it was gone. Firefighters worked in silence, their faces grim. Electrical fault, one muttered. But I saw the faint trace of accelerant on the ground. This wasn't an accident. Later that day, 2 detectives arrived. Mrs. Hale, one said, we've received an anonymous tip alleging you may have set the fire yourself, to destroy evidence. I stared at him in disbelief. That's absurd. They exchanged a look. The call came from a restricted number. We're required to investigate. I didn't need to ask who made the call. Vanessa was striking back the only way she knew how, by turning suspicion on me. Elena arrived an hour later, furious. She's escalating. But she's sloppy. We'll request surveillance footage from the street cams. 3 days later, the footage arrived, and there she was. Vanessa's car, headlights off, was pulling out from the side gate 15 minutes before the fire began. Elena smirked. Gotcha. I watched the footage over and over, my anger hardening into resolve. She tried to ruin my name, I said. Now I'll ruin her mask. When the truth comes to light, someone always burns. Don't miss Chapter 10, it's the turning point you've been waiting for. Like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from, because the reckoning is near. Chapter 10, The Reckoning begins. They say the truth sets you free, but sometimes, it burns first. After the fire, I stopped hiding. It was time Vanessa Hale learned what real justice looks like. Elena and Michael met me in the study. On the table lay every document, every recording, every piece of proof we'd collected. Elena tapped her pen against the final page. It's time to go public. Michael nodded. The media already suspects something. If we release the evidence strategically, Vanessa's image collapses overnight. I hesitated. And what about the case? Elena smiled faintly. Sometimes, public truth is the strongest weapon. We leaked the story anonymously. Within hours, headlines flooded the news feeds. Heiress under investigation for estate fraud and arson. Vanessa's social media vanished. Her lawyers withdrew. Sponsors cancelled contracts linked to her ventures. Her name, once synonymous with power, became a synonym for deceit. The next morning, she appeared at my gate, unannounced again. No makeup, no confidence. Just trembling rage. You did this, she hissed. I stepped closer. No, Vanessa. You did this. She broke down, tears streaking her face. He loved me too, you know. I never said he didn't, I replied softly. But love doesn't justify betrayal. She turned and walked away, slower this time. Later that week, Elena called. The audit confirmed everything. Funds misused, signatures forged, taxes evaded. She's facing indictment. I closed my eyes, relief and sorrow mingling. Justice wasn't sweet, it was heavy. But it was real. That night, I visited Andrew's grave. The air was cool, calm, forgiving. I placed the restored cufflink beside his headstone and whispered, "It's done, my love. She can't hurt us anymore." And for the first time in months, I felt peace. The reckoning has begun, but there's still more to come. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're streaming from. Chapter 11 will reveal what happens after justice is served. Chapter 11, The Confession. The truth doesn't always arrive in court, it sometimes arrives in tears. When Vanessa confessed, it wasn't victory I felt. It was something heavier, something almost like pity. The days after the indictment were quiet. Reporters stopped camping outside the gates, and the air finally felt breathable again. But then, one morning, the intercom buzzed. "Mrs. Hale," the guard said, "Vanessa Hale is here. She's alone." For a moment, I almost told him to send her away. But something inside me whispered, "Hear her out." I met her on the patio. She looked nothing like the woman who once ran our family's empire, her hair disheveled, her eyes hollow. She sat down slowly, folding her trembling hands. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she began, voice breaking. "Andrew was already sick. He told me he wanted to revise his will, to make things easier. I just made sure it happened my way." "You forged his signature," I said quietly. Tears welled in her eyes. "He loved you, Catherine. But he was scared of dying, scared of letting go. I told him I'd handle it, and I did. Until it spiraled." I watched her closely. "You took everything, Vanessa. Even his dignity." She shook her head. "No. I tried to control what I couldn't bear to lose. When he died, I thought I could rewrite how people remembered him. But it only made me a monster. For the first time, I saw not an enemy, but a broken woman who'd built her life on fear and greed." "Why come here now?" I asked. "Because it's over," she whispered. "The prosecutors want a plea deal. They said if I confess, I might avoid prison. I wanted you to hear it from me first." I stood slowly. "You'll have to live with what you did." "I already have." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Catherine." I nodded once. "Then do what Andrew never could, tell the truth." When she left, I felt neither triumph nor joy, just the quiet weight of closure. The war was ending, and there was nothing left to destroy. That night, I sat by Andrew's desk, opened one of his old journals, and found a line I'd never noticed before. "Truth is like a tide, it always returns." He was right. It finally had. Vanessa's confession changed everything, but Catherine's battle isn't truly over. What happens when the dust settles will surprise you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're streaming from. Chapter 12 brings a twist you won't expect. Chapter 12, The Missing Will. Just when I thought the story was over, a forgotten envelope in Andrew's handwriting appeared, and it rewrote everything I thought I knew. It was Michael who found it. He'd been cataloguing Andrew's archived letters for the foundation when he called me. "Catherine," he said, "you need to come to the office. I found something." On the table lay a small, sealed envelope. My name was written across the front in Andrew's familiar script. My heart pounded. I hadn't seen his handwriting in months. "Where was it?" I asked softly. "Inside a tax folder, dated 2 months before his death. It was misplaced during storage." With trembling fingers, I opened it. Inside was a single-page letter. Andrew's words were deliberate, almost prophetic. "If you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I've made changes to the trust under pressure, but my final intention remains. Catherine is to retain equal authority over all estate matters. My legal team will have the draft copy." Below that, a note in his hand, "Elena Ruiz should be notified if anything happens to me." Elena's eyes widened. He knew. He anticipated manipulation. The next morning, she filed a motion to reopen probate with the newly discovered evidence. The document's authenticity was verified. Andrew's handwriting, his signature, everything matched. Within a week, the judge reinstated my co-trustee status and ordered full restitution of assets wrongfully transferred under Vanessa's control. The foundation board issued a statement clearing my name, and donors who had once pulled away began to return. The Hale name, long tarnished by greed, was finally clean again. That evening, I visited Andrew's grave, holding the letter in my hands. "You always found a way to speak," I whispered. "Even from beyond." A warm breeze passed through the garden, rustling the magnolia leaves. For the first time in years, I smiled without sorrow. The lost will brought truth to light, but not everyone is ready to move on. In Chapter 13, Catherine faces a final test that will decide her peace once and for all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Chapter 13, The Final Hearing. Every battle needs a final reckoning, and this was mine. Not in rage, but in truth. The courthouse was quieter this time. No reporters, no whispers. Just the sound of footsteps echoing on polished marble floors. Vanessa stood beside her attorney, pale but composed. The judge reviewed the final motion. "Mrs. Hale," he said, turning to me, "is there anything you'd like to add before we close this matter?" I rose slowly. "Only this, Your Honor. My husband believed in fairness and honesty. It took a long time, but those values have finally been restored. I ask only that his legacy be preserved in truth, not rewritten by greed." The judge nodded. "Well said." He turned to Vanessa. "The court accepts your confession and approves the restitution agreement. You will surrender all misappropriated assets and step down from all remaining estate positions." Vanessa's voice shook. "I understand, Your Honor." The gavel fell. It was over. Outside the courtroom, Vanessa approached me. "They said I'll serve probation instead of prison," she murmured. "I suppose that's mercy." "It's justice," I replied. "Andrew wouldn't have wanted your destruction, just your honesty." She nodded faintly. "Maybe someday, I'll learn forgiveness." "Maybe," I said quietly. "But not from me, from yourself." We parted ways in silence. That night, I walked through the empty halls of the house, my house again, and felt the echoes of Andrew's laughter in every room. The war was over, but the memories remained gentle now, not haunting. Elena called later. "It's official, Catherine. The courts recognized you as co-trustee. Everything's as Andrew intended." "Then it's done," I said, exhaling slowly. "Finally done. Justice is complete, but peace comes at a price." Chapter 14 reveals what happens when the fight ends and the healing begins. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Chapter 14, The Quiet Restoration. After the storm, silence can be deafening, but for the first time, it was peaceful. Weeks passed. The Hale Foundation reopened under new board. My name returned to the masthead, not as a symbol of victory, but as a reminder of endurance. Donors reached out, thanking me for protecting Andrew's legacy. The first scholarship fund was launched in his name, the Andrew Hale Fellowship for Ethics in Leadership. During the ceremony, I spoke briefly. Integrity is what survives us. Andrew believed that. I only carried it forward. Applause followed, gentle, respectful. Nothing loud, nothing grand. Just real. Later that evening, I sat with Michael and Elena in the garden, sipping tea under the string lights Andrew had hung years ago. "You did it, Catherine," Michael said. "You restored what mattered most." Elena smiled softly. "And you did it without losing yourself." I looked at them both, my heart light. "No, we did it together." For the first time in months, laughter returned to that house. Not forced, not rehearsed, just laughter. As night deepened, I opened one of Andrew's old journals. Inside was a dried magnolia petal, pressed flat between the pages. Beneath it, his note. "If you ever feel lost, remember, the garden always grows back." I closed the book, eyes wet but smiling. The garden was growing back indeed. Catherine finally finds her peace, but there's one last letter waiting to be read. Don't miss the heartfelt ending in Chapter 15. Like, subscribe, and tell us where you're streaming from. Chapter 15, The Letter. Some stories end in courtrooms, but mine ended with a letter. Not from a lawyer, Not from an enemy, from the man I loved. It arrived on a rainy Thursday. A simple brown envelope, forwarded from Andrew's old law office. The postmark was dated 3 days before his death. I sat by the window, listening to the rain as I opened it. Inside was a single page, handwritten. My dearest Catherine. If this reaches you, it means I didn't get to say everything I wanted. You were my strength, even when I was too proud to admit it. Don't let grief turn to bitterness. The truth will find you, as it always has. When it does, smile for me. Love, always, Andrew. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears falling freely. After everything, the lies, the fire, the courtroom battles, this was what remained. Love. That evening, I placed the letter inside his favorite journal and set it beside the restored cufflink on the mantel. Outside, the rain slowed to a gentle drizzle. From the window, I watched the garden, freshly blooming again after months of care. The magnolias gleamed in the moonlight, alive and forgiving. I whispered softly, "You were right, Andrew. The truth did find me, and it set me free." In that moment, I knew revenge was never the real story. It was redemption. And that's how it ends. One woman's fight for truth, legacy, and quiet justice. If you followed Catherine's journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're streaming from. Because sometimes, the best revenge is peace.